Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. Hope you guys are doing well today. In this video, we're going to be talking about Guardian Druid in our second episode of why bring these tanks to Mythic Plus. So we're going to talk about Guardian Druid quite specifically, and going through just why would you bring a Guardian Druid over any other tank to Mythic Plus? Now, the first main reason and the biggest defining reason to bring a Guardian Druid over any other tank currently, in your Mythic Plus pug group, is physical mitigation. I would say Guardian Druids have the strongest balance at the moment between taking the least amount of damage as well as being able to heal up a lot, mitigate a lot of the damage and things like that. They physically just hold damage better than any other tank currently, I think. And I know yesterday I said I think prop pallies are going to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, in the next patch. I still believe that, I genuinely do, but I think Guardian Druids, especially with the buff coming, are going to take so little damage. Now, there is a couple of drawbacks which we will talk about, but just to start with the positives, I think they're going to be one of the strongest tanks at just not taking damage. And there's a few reasons for this. They are very often versatility stacked, which I know a lot of tanks take versatility, but Guardian Druids can almost stack it and not really worry about anything else. You want a little bit of haste, a little bit of mastery, but versatility is our main stat by a mile. We also have more health than everybody just because of the nature of our mastery. We take more healing as well. And there's spammable cooldowns. Now, you have 2 charges of Survival Instincts. You have Bark Skin on a minute cooldown, reduced if you take a Conduit or a Talent. You have 2 stacks of Frenzy Regen. You have Iron Fur, which is pretty much your only rage spender. Maul is just not worth it. So almost everything goes into Iron Fur, which can be spammed if you were in a Mythic Plus environment, which is really nice. The second reason you would bring a Guardian Druid is utility. Now, they have 3 different affinities they can go. Typically, you're going to see them as Balanced Druid. This means the only real affinity they're going to bring, the only really utility they're going to bring as being Balanced Affinity is a Typhoon. That's helpful, but it's more of a tank cooldown than anything else anyway. They do bring a Combat Res, they do bring a Stampeding Roar. Both of these things are pretty big. They also bring a Soothe, a Decurse. So they do bring a fair bit, actually, if you look at it. Again, I still think other tanks do bring a little bit of other stuff. The Palo brings, obviously, a lot more utility just than anything else anyway. We talked about that on, what day are we on? Saturday, I believe. But I do think there is reasons to bring a Guardian Druid for utility. If you haven't got a combat res in your group, you can see the run I was recording this in, actually. We had 2 Pallies, a Priest, and a Warrior. Now, yes, you can get a combat res through engineering, but to get a guaranteed easy cast combat res, Guardian Druid is a good option. So they do offer that in terms of kind of utility for the group. The third thing is single target damage. Now, people are going to look at this and go, ha, Guardian Druid doesn't do damage. They're right. They're absolutely right. Guardian Druids have probably the worst actual overall damage out of any of the tanks, and it doesn't really get better with legendaries or things like that. You're almost forced into playing one of 2 legendaries, which I will talk about the legendaries in a second. But now, while I don't typically have a threat issue, I was also very, very well geared on my Guardian Druid. I could do consistent damage over every pack, but I was never bursting really high on AoE. However, in single target, because I'm playing Boomy Affinity, I have Convoke. Now, I can stand up and do Balance Affinity, Boomy Convoke, and do quite considerable, probably around 8 to 10,000 damage DPS during that time. So that's kind of 40-50k damage in that period of time. If not higher, I've had periods where I've done easily into about 80k damage. And that's, while it's not huge, it's something. It gives more than most other tanks would in that period of time. Very, very good for killing a Prideful off or helping burst down a boss really quickly. I really enjoy playing my Guardian Druid during Fortified weeks because not only are they such good ad tanks, they are very, very good at helping a boss die immediately. So we have Convoke, which helps obviously with Boomy. We also have Heart of the Wild, which gives us even more of a kind of that burst at the start of a boss fight. You'll see in this run, actually, we get to Hakar, and I believe I burst up to about 15k as Boomy Affinity, doing some serious damage, really. And this is why I like playing with the Holy Pally as well. Blessing a Sacrifice is on the same cooldown as a Guardian Druid. It's synergized really well because, as Convoke, sorry, because you want to try and pair it with something, or you have to kite. I find as Guardian Druid, I can stand up with maybe a Bark Skin or an external cooldown and soak damage for just a couple of seconds while I'm convoking. If I've got nothing, I'm going to take too much damage. Now on a boss, I've got used to now having Blessing a Sacrifice or something like that, stand up, convoke, go straight back into bear, and I'm safe. I might have taken a hit or two, I might be 30-40% health, but I'm fairly safe at that. I can pop one Frenzied Regen and I'm fine. And it's really, really good. So actually single target damage is definitely a plus, I think, on terms of anything else in terms of pure burst single target damage. And finally, Incarn. Now, again, people might question Incarn and go, well, it's only one ability. Everything has like that big cooldown. I think Guardian Druid, especially when you pair it with Ursoc's Fury, Legendary, has the strongest tank 3-minute cooldown in the game, undeniably. Now, the reason for this is that things like Necrotic don't affect your absorb from Ursoc's Fury. This means that even in Necrotic weeks, you can do some massive, massive pulls and just ignore the Necrotic affix entirely until Incarn wears off. Now, while you would have Berserk normally, I take Incarn because it doubles the duration. It gives a couple of other benefits, but it doubles the duration. That's the main reason why I would want to do it. A 30-second cooldown where you're effectively immune to damage as long as there's more than 4 or 5 targets. I actually take 2 potency conduits on my Druid, and the reason for that is to get the extra haste during Incarn. I do an insane amount of damage during that time. I almost permanently have a 20-30k absorb during that time. I'm very rarely taking damage, and if you pair this again with something like a Holy Pally who can kick out some damage during them big AoE pulls, he's not going to have to heal you. You have a beacon on you, he may need to throw 1 or 2 heals, but it's not going to be anything much. You have things like Stampeding Roar, Skull Bash if you need to get around and use it for mobility. You can do that to get them pulls all together nice and quick. And you can really do some crazy, crazy things. So I think we then look at Incarn as just such a strong tank cooldown that if you play around it, that's almost game defining in terms of Mythic Plus. We've seen them in MDI already in certain affixes. I think it was Necrotic then because you could get around it. Unfortunately, so there's a couple of drawbacks here with Guardian Druid then. The first one is almost all Druids you see are going to be Night Fae, while Necrolord or Venthyr or even Kyrian, any of them are viable to play as Guardian. Ultimately, they're gonna be Night Fae because they're just so good for every spec. It's a fun ability and it does contribute a lot to other things as well. That they don't really have that versatility there. The other parts is then they're not incredibly good against magic damage. Against certain bosses, they are going to have to pop quite big cooldowns just to survive certain magic hits, like Tank Busters. Talk about the last boss in Theatre of Pain, where you have the physical magic damage. I almost always can mitigate that physical damage by quite a lot, but the magic damage is still going to hit me by a significant portion. I almost always have to pop either a Survival Instinct or a Bark Skin on that, or call for an external on higher keys, especially Tyrannical. Hakar's another one. He has quite a heavy hitting Tank Buster. Now I can survive it. I've got good gear and things like that. But it hits twice, one physical, one magic. The physical one doesn't hit me all too much. The magical one does. But yeah, so the other part is they have some of the weakest damage in the game. For a tank, unfortunately, I think every other tank can beat them on AoE damage. So they are pure walls. They are there to absorb, soak damage, but they're not there to be kicking out the most amount of damage possible. So it's something to be aware of if you're going to be going into a run trying to 3-test keys. They don't have an AoE grip. They don't have a lot of kind of versatility in terms of their covenants. While they can play all of them, they're probably not going to. So there is a couple of downsides to them, but I ultimately think if you want a tank that is just going to stand there, absorb damage, and not die, Guardian Druid might be for you. So guys, let me know what you think of the video. I'm going to do the rest of the tanks as soon as I can. Prot Warrior is going to be next. Vengeance Demon Hunter is likely going to be after that. If you have any special requests or any questions like that, please leave them in the comments below. You know I'll reply. If you've seen the videos and you haven't subscribed yet, there is a big portion of you that are watching a lot of the videos but not subscribing. That's fine if that's your choice. But if you'd like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching and catch you later, guys. Goodbye.